Hey Rob, hope you're doing well, man. First and foremost, welcome to the team. I just wanted to quickly give you a overview email of the spreadsheet and like why we're making some of the decisions that we're making and what I saw in your questionnaire and in your videos. So obviously, get back to me with any questions you may have. We're not going to get started until Monday, anyways. But I figured I'd get this to you ahead of time for us to go back and forth. Make sure you're comfortable with the strategy moving forward, and making sure that we're both confident about everything going into day one, week one. So have this video playing as you go through the spreadsheet, just because the main point of the video is just going over what to do on the spreadsheet and how to read it, especially with respect to RPE learning and stuff like that. So first and foremost, if you go into cycle info at the bottom of the spreadsheet, the second tab, that has your name and just very few pieces of information that are very helpful for our programming needs. So squat PR, bench PR, and deadlift PR. This is cool because it'll allow for the spreadsheet to take from that tab and from that area to predict around what number you should be looking for given the RPE correlation. So this is going to be your number one guide to making sure that you're learning RPEs with a safety rail, if you will. Because I know that RPEs are very subjective, and I know that a lot of people are like, it's tough to like truly feel how many reps you have left in the tank. But you'll be happy to know that the main reason why I generally like RPEs are really for two reasons. The first reason is that percentages are generally a fallacy. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the information that we learn from a sports performance and programming perspective is really stolen from Soviet Russia. And a lot of times these texts, like just basically things like super training or like excuse me, Prolipin's table and all of these like helpful but outdated models of performance all really don't take into account one major thing that us as athletes in America don't really account for, and that is that we don't get paid to eat, sleep, and train, right? So you as a lawyer, I believe, based on the last time I saw your LinkedIn a while ago, and me as a gym owner and coach, a lot of times like there are so many different variables on top of the profession that we have and on top of the family and friend endeavors that we have. Percentages are usually not very dependable, because if I say, hey Rob, go into the gym and hit 80%, and you didn't sleep very well and you didn't eat very well and your stress is super high, the argument is 80% going to actually feel like 80%, or is 80% trying to give you a certain training stimulus, right? Which kind of leads me to my RPE point, is that RPEs give you a great opportunity for you to get the training effect, especially on bad days where you have an opportunity to throttle back. But also, if you're having a great day, it gives you an opportunity to throttle forward. So it is the main takeaway here is it's auto-regulation. Auto-regulation is essentially making sure that you get the most out of each training situation. It is, excuse me, fighting a cold from post nationals. I always get sick when I see 2,000 powerlifters. So just to keep that in mind, RPEs are the more dependable resource, and also keep in mind that you'll be happy to know that there is very hard evidence that suggests that people who are asked to rate their reps in reserve or their RPE rating are usually within 95% accuracy within the first 2 weeks as an intermediate trained athlete. So a lot of numbers and a lot of information and a lot of emerging information is on our side with practicing RPEs, and I'm confident that once you get the hang of it, you should be good to go, especially with respect to the estimated kilos in your competition movements. So if you look at day one, week one, keep in mind that there's a couple of things in the notes section. So there might be some some special instructions for you. So don't do a movement until you check the notes section for yourself. So comp squat, day one. If you look at the white area by comp squat, there's reps and then there's sets with the amount of rows that there are. So the best way to read this would be 5 sets of 5 reps. The first 3 sets are 5 at 6 RPE, 5 at 7, and 5 at 8. This means that 5 at 6 RPE should feel like you have 4 reps left in the tank. 5 at 7 should feel like you have 3, and 5 at 8 should feel like you have 2. Now, if you look to your right-hand side under estimated kilos formula, you'll see that there is a range for you to hit. So, for example, 5 at 6 is 127, 5 at 7 is 131, 5 at 8 is 135. Keep in mind that this is an estimation. It's purely a mathematical projection. So this gives you a guide to shoot around. But if you have to be plus or minus 10 kilos away from your guides, that's perfectly fine. At least it gives you something to generally shoot for. And that is the only way you should really use this. So let's say, for example, you're 5 at 6 as you're warming up and you hit 122.5 or whatever the case is, and it feels like a 6, stop right there. The next big rule, besides using this as only an estimate and not as religion, is that as you progress in these movements, your main job for the first week or two is simply to undershoot and be more on the conservative side than on the bullish side. So if you're stuck between 122.5 or 127.5 for your 5 at 6, go with 122 so that way you know you can beat it the next week. Because even if your RPEs are still being learned by week 3 or week 4, the thing that we can rely on as a safety net here is linear progression. So, which means that whatever you hit for your top set of comp squat for week 1, day 1, you should be able to, you should be able to beat it for week 2, day 1. So keep that in mind. Your last 2 back off sets are going to be back offs in terms of intensity. So after you hit your top set, you're going to type into the gray area under load lifted what you hit for your 5 at 8. So let's say, for example, let's type in 140 kilos. If you hit the tab button from 140 kilos, you'll notice that the math is done for you in the 5 at 80% of previous set. Keep in mind that the reason why you're taking such a big drop in weight is because your last 2 sets are going to be done in a 3-1-0 tempo. I think that we could always use positional strength in movement, and 3-1-0 tempo basically means that you're doing 3 seconds on the way down, 1 second at the bottom of your position, and 0 seconds or shooting up as fast as you can on the way up. For comp bench, this is much more straightforward. You're going to be doing 6 at 6, 6 at 7, 6 at 8, and only taking 5% off for your load drop. Keep in mind that every single rep should be paused. What I mean by paused is that every rep should be 1 Mississippi at the very least at the bottom of your position. The main thing that I want to make sure that you're doing for your comp bench is ensuring that when you unrack the bar, you're doing 2 things. And just try to do this with me in a video. So stick your hands out like you're a zombie. And then now from here, pull your shoulders as far forward as you possibly can. Then from there, pull your shoulders as far back as you possibly can. Try to get your shoulder blades to pinch together as hard as you can make it. So once you feel like your shoulders are pinched together as hard as they possibly can make the tightest fist you possibly can, and then try to close your armpits down as if I'm trying to pull my elbows into my ribs. So as soon as I pull my shoulder blades back, I'm making a tight fist and pulling my elbows down, thinking about keeping my neck very long. And what should happen here is I should feel 2 things. I should feel my shoulder blades retract back, and that's going to put a lot less stress on my shoulder, which hopefully will be the reason why we can bench 3 times a week, hopefully. And then closing your armpits down is the same effect as breaking the bar in half, and that's going to get your lats more involved to stabilize your descent. I think a very big problem that you ran into at the meet was that the ref was giving you some pretty long pause commands, and that's mainly because the stability off the chest wasn't quite there. And I know that you got robbed by that Rutgers spotter. So, and this is no coincidence, and this is just simply coincidence that I'm wearing Rutgers powerlifting. I never went to Rutgers, so please don't hate me. But in that sense, when you unrack the bar, as you pull your shoulder blades back and down, this should give you some added stability on the way down. It also appears that you're excuse me. It also appears that you're hitting a little bit high. Sorry about that. So it also appears that you're hitting a little bit high on the chest. I want you to try to think about pulling your bar path down to around your sternum position. The reason behind that is that when you make contact in your sternum, you're going to be able to drive back toward your shoulders on the bar path and not necessarily go straight up. So a very, very big thing that I'm going to be looking for in your bench press is making sure that you're sloping the bar back down towards your shoulders on the way up. We can talk more about that during your check-in when I can actually talk for real. Your last accessory for the days are going to be deadlift to knees. So deadlift to knees means that you're just basically going to break the bar from the midfoot or from the mid shin off the floor all the way to above your knee. So you're getting the bar to get above your knee. You're holding it there for 2 seconds and then placing the bar back down. A very big reason why you got red lit on that hitching maneuver is because I think your knees want to travel forward the moment that your bar passes above your knee. I want you to get the bar above your knee and get your knees back and not forward, so that way we're used to getting into a very, very good position off the floor. I think that a lot of the problems at the top have a lot to do with your off the floor starting position. So your deadlifts, your squats, and your bench press, I want them all filmed from the profile view. You should at least get me top sets of your videos of these movements. And also, if there's time, get me lat pull downs. Everything that you lift, you should put in load lifted. If you prefer pounds, you can always change cycle info to the pound alternative, and then it'll just auto-populate as pounds, and you can move forward and put in pounds as your main thing. Day 2, you're going to be doing, and also there's time lat pull downs. I think I said that before, but just in case. Day 2, high bar or front squat. This is just essentially going to get you to get a little bit more quad involvement in your second day assistant squat. So with high bar, do high bar, which means that you place it on the traps. I know that you probably already know that. But if you can do a front rack and you can do front squat, I would prefer front squat because it'll work your abs a little bit harder and will allow you to stay a little bit more upright in your squat. A sneaking suspicion as to why you have that up top sticking point is mainly because the glutes aren't really doing their job. So the moment that you hit the bottom of your position, you should always think about squeezing your glutes as hard as you possibly can. Glutes are very rarely ever activated, so a good way to think about it is once you hit the bottom of your squat, try to think about pinching your butt cheeks together as hard as you can, as if you're trying to hold a penny in between your butt cheeks. And that'll allow you to really feel like you're clenching your glutes well at the very top and finishing affirmatively at the squat. 2 count pause bench. This is just making sure that we're getting a little bit tighter off the chest. The main expectation for the 2 count pause bench is just that when you make contact on your chest, you're trying your best to make such soft contact that a fly can be depressed on your bar and be able to fly away the moment you start pressing. All right, so that's the level of care that I want you to really think about being soft and controlled off of the chest. I want you to stay as tight as you possibly can. And so row of choice, this is going to be cable row, lat pull down, bent over row, any kind of row that you want to do. So day 3, we're going to do some pause squats. So this is going to get you more comfortable out of the bottom of that hole position. So pause squats, you're just going to count 1 Mississippi at the bottom of your position. Try your best to really make sure that you're holding that bottom position for 1 second and not bouncing out or like kind of reaching for your depth and then coming down into another depth position. Those are just the main issues that happen with pause squats. So once you fill in your 4 and 8, just keep in mind that the math will be done for you for your back offset. So really the best way to read this is that it's 10% off of your previous back offset. Now, I'm optimistic that you may be able to bench 3 times a week if we have better form and like better tightness in that position and less shoulder usage. It may actually be worth it to go a little bit wider in your grip so that way your shoulders don't take as much of the brunt. Because the closer you are, the more your shoulders and your triceps are going to be responsible for moving that weight. So if you play around with the grip position, this may help kind of get you to train 3 times a week, but only if you feel good. I want you to do the polarized training. Polarized training for bench just basically means that you're going to hit a heavy single. By heavy single, I mean you're going to do a single that you feel like you have 3 or 4 reps left in the tank. So it's not going to be heavy, but it'll at least get you in the spirit of hitting singles earlier on before competition, rather than doing it like only later on. So once you establish a single at 6, and remember you want to undershoot, not overshoot there, you type it into the gray area, and then the estimated 1 rep max will populate for you, and so that'll give you an opportunity for you to like get some sub-maximal bench volume in and be able to progress your bench pretty quickly. You're going to do the same exact thing for competition deadlift, but get a little bit heavier. So a single at 7. The single at 7, I don't want to see your knees go forward. I don't want to see any kind of like evidence of a hitch or anything like that. I know that you're not doing this consciously, but I want to not see it anyways. And then you're going to do your back off sets from there. Your back off sets from there are going to be auto-populated only once you put in what you hit for a for your single. All right. So let me know if you have any questions there. Last but not least, leg extension, leg curl superset. This is just on machines. If you have a leg press, you could actually do the leg press in lieu of doing 2 exercises, but it's all based on your equipment and stuff like that. So with that being said, Rob, I will send this over along with the RP article, and take a look over once you watch this video, once you look through the program, send over what questions you have, and let me know if there's anything else that you would like some context on before we start on Monday in earnest. So I'll also send you a check-in format spreadsheet for you as well, and then we'll go from there. So sorry I'm a little out of it because I'm on Dayquil and stuff like that. But I promise future check-ins will certainly be less coffee for sure. All right, Rob. Talk to you soon, man. Later.